Hey guys, here. I'm just gonna adjust the camera here real quick. So it lets me. Okay. Now, of course, I had a bit of a conversation with somebody about living traditionally, and I guess you could say that's always been a bit of a topic lately. With people, and people not getting married and how it's going to be the end of the world because people aren't getting married and blah blah. The shindig, but of course, was having a chat with some people about doing so, and of course, I will probably be making another video that talks a bit more about it. But you know, so here's the first comment here. The question for me on a personal journey is: can I live a fully functional life, choosing tech over tradition? What I'm saying is that there is no avoiding anyone, not avoiding women, not avoiding dating relationships, not hating, not no bad feelings, simply following and choosing what works for me, a matter of choice in a free country. The answer is I believe yes, I can and be happy with the tech alone. This includes the dolls. This is a very personal thing. I seem to get enough interaction in my work. Beyond that, tech alone seems to fill the bill. And then I, came up to him and I said, well, take it from me from personal experience. You know, when I was homeschooled, like I've said before, I was homeschooled while I was living in a small mansion. And, well, we all had, all the bells and whistles and everything. I remember my father at one point, years, or at least a year before we had moved from there, he had a luxury Lexus vehicle even. And, like I said, and I had a very reliable room and everything. There weren't really, I mean, there were love dolls at the time, but, I don't think even real dolls started until like 2005 or something like that, I think, which was like, I'd say near the end of when I was, getting out of homeschool. It's about that time period. But what I kind of learned from that is, just tech alone, just for, I would say probably a lot of people probably wouldn't fit the bill. I've maybe met some people that have, are technosexual, as they call it. I remember, sometimes they would talk about not getting along with people. And of course, I'll talk a bit more about that later. But it just seems like we can't really, live without at least some kind of interaction with people. You know, it's like you've got to have some people in the loop to some extent. That and I had to, you know, go back to some of my roots to the way I used to live in some areas because, of course, I wasn't homeschooled anymore. And then I had another period at the time where I had to adjust, and then a couple of other periods where I had to adjust, and so on and so forth. I think you guys get the points. I'm trying to make the, yeah, I'm trying to, I'm trying to tell you the short version of the story here. Sorry for the mix-up in my speaking. Anyway, and then this person comes up, and then he asked me, tech or tradition, because I guess he was just, or they were confused about, am I for living non-traditionally or traditionally? And I gave him this message. I said, I'm actually not a very traditional guy. I always think it's funny how some people still look at our way of life as black and white, like either get traditional, married, or be lonely. For some reason, they never think of other options. You can have a relationship and not be married, for instance. I've seen people do it. I would say, at least a few people do that before. They would have children and all the works, but they, didn't really have the benefit of getting married, but they were in a relationship and, would be with each other for years and all that. Kind of like marriage, but without actually traditionally getting married. But I've seen it work before. My cousins are only getting married because they got someone pregnant and are like, well, I guess we'll get married, which makes enough sense to me. For some, living closer to a traditional life works, and for some, it doesn't. The simple answer being, I really don't care how somebody lives their lives as long as it works and it doesn't hurt anyone. Now, if that being said, I mean, my parents and seeing how indifferent people really are in the real world. Because, like I've said, I grew up kind of in a small town where people were kind of more like family and we kind of had to care for each other. And then going out into the real world, it was, again, people were very indifferent. It's not like, people were bad, of course, but they were just very indifferent. And so, yeah, I, of course, had to adjust to that at the time. And then when I came back, I remember to that small town, years later after being homeschooled and everything, it was just so fucking weird. You know what I mean? It was just so weird coming back. And a lot of the people that I knew in the past were actually still living there, believe it or not. Like they were actually still living there. My God. And a couple, I remember, of people at some points came up to me and were like, hey, Blake. And then I'm just like, wait a minute. I don't recognize that person. But it was like, somebody I knew in the past and they still knew who I was. So they would randomly come up to me and be like, hey, so and so, and I'd be like, wait, apparently it's somebody that knew me in the past, but I don't recognize them. It was so fucking weird. But anyway. And then he comments back to me, well, yeah, I don't too agree with living scripted lives and outcomes due to social and cultural norms that are rarely challenged or critiqued. The tech is just terribly convenient. The fact that you can't get STDs alone, just on that alone, is worth the price. Seeing that sexually active people do mislead others without taking into consideration who they can hurt down the line. Well, because that's another thing that I learned in the real world is that sometimes people just don't care about the consequences. And we call these bad people, is what they're called. And I commented back to him, life is a game to some people. And the people that won the U.S. or I think that spell checked at me. I'm gonna re-edit that comment there just so you know. For some reason, when I tried typing down own, it came out one, and I think it's because it spell checked it for some reason. So I'll redo that comment there. But I was trying to say is life is a game to some people, and the people that own the U.S. still live traditional lifestyles. For people that sometimes, are like, let's say my father who, lives their careers and sometimes can be very isolated in, their careers and lifestyles. My father still lives kind of a more traditional, old-fashioned lifestyle. And the people that also own a country are also, isolated in this lifestyle. They're isolated from the world, and they're kind of running, I would say, a bit of their own fantasy with their lifestyles, to say the least. Is basically what's kind of going on with these types of people. Now, of course, like I've said, I really don't care how people live, and I really don't care for the people that think that everybody should be like them. Kind of like how some of my father's friends act like. They think that everybody needs to be like them. They think that everybody needs to work 100% of the time of the day and sacrifice all of their problems and issues and, just act like a perky, perfect person every day. Well, that, of course, just is not reality and how reality works, sadly. But, what can you say? Sometimes people's skills and lifestyles get to their heads, and nobody's perfect. We all have our issues. That being said, I guess I'll end the video and I'll start making my work on my next one. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.